Hi, everyone. My name is DeWine DaCosta, and I'm here today with the amazing, wonderful, and beautiful Miss Nicole Handy. For those who are new to Nicole, Nicole is an amazing mom. She's a wife. She's one of the stars on OWN's Family Empire Houston. She's an entrepreneur as the co CEO of Braden Real Estate Group, and so much more. As a Black woman leading one of Houston's top Black owned real estate firms, Nicole is not only changing the face of real estate, but also redefining what it means to uplift other women in the industry along the way. So, Nicole, we're so excited to share you with the Brown Style audience today. How are you?
I am amazing. I am so excited to be here.
And we're excited to have you. I want to say a couple weekends ago, I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at an event in Houston, and you talked a lot about your grandma and your grandparents and the path that they paved for you in entrepreneurship. So obviously, you come from a family of entrepreneurs. How
Yes.
did their experience and guidance sort of shape your own entrepreneurial journey?
You know what? Honestly, it's down on home on hard work. Like I just witnessed what you truly reap what you sow, right?
Right.
And I witnessed success through just straight up hard work. It wasn't given to, my family or anything. It was all just hard work and dedication. So like that, it really kind of stems from the top of my grandparents, like I would see them just work hard and be good people. I would see my grandmother, like everybody is like, why do you wake up at 4 o'clock? Why do you wake up at 4:30? And I'm like, well, when I was younger, we would stay at my grandmother's house. Like she would get up and like creep through the dark so she wouldn't wake anybody else
Wow.
up, and get ready at 4 o'clock in the morning to start her work day. But what
Mhm.
that truly showed me is that, nothing is given to you. And but you can be successful and reap through hard work.
I love that.
Yeah.
And now, what was your aha moment? Because you come from a background, I believe, of oil and gas. You worked in engineering.
Yeah.
So, what was your aha moment where you decided to shift from a successful engineering career and now I want to pivot into the world of real estate?
Yeah. Honestly, the need to be fulfilled.
Mhm.
And I was great at what I did, like, and it was so crazy, like what I would I would get these awards and accolades at work, and like I'll never forget one year I was ranked in the top 5% in the whole company amongst my peers, and everybody was like, "Well, what did you do, and what is your secret?" And I'm like, "I did my job,"
Right.
and so I'm like, so what more can I do? But my
Mhm.
job. But what my breaking point was, I was not fulfilled in what I did. And like in the real estate industry, I get to change lives. Not
Yeah.
only as helping people who probably never thought that they would be able to attain home ownership, have home ownership, but also from the real estate agent perspective too. Being a brokerage owner, we've had agents go from barely anything, to, successful real estate investors, being able to take care of their families, truly changing their lives, and so that I realized I wasn't being fulfilled in my corporate career and I needed more. And my more was me pouring into others,
I love
and
that.
I get that through, my career in real estate.
hmm And now this wasn't a question that I already had planned for you, but now with you talking about, not being fulfilled at your job and finding a whole nother career shift to be able to find that fulfillment, what kind of advice would you offer to other women who may find themselves in positions or in careers where they feel unfulfilled and
Yeah.
maybe they're scared to kind of like make that leap or take that jump to find something else that will fulfill them?
Yeah. So I would want to say, follow your heart and do what you truly love, right? And it may not be, monetary wise, making as much money as you did at your corporate career, but you're fulfilled through, you're rich through your fulfillment. That's the first thing. But also to be
Yes.
strategic about it now. We have to pay our bills and live our life, so
Yes.
don't just make sure you have a plan, a true transition plan before you just jump out. Like I did have a certain amount of money saved. Actually, when I by the time I transitioned, I hate to say this, but I say this all the time, I was a sucky corporate employee, right? Because I was already actively working in my real estate career, and
As you
actually I
should.
had
Yeah.
superseded my income in my real estate career before I even left my corporate career. But what I did is
Mhm.
I leveraged the funds that I made from my corporate career
Yes.
to build my real estate business. So,
Hmm.
yeah, girl, use that money that those people paying you,
Right.
yeah, use that money that those people are paying you, to
Yeah.
truly transition, and truly build upon what it is that you were called to do.
Hmm. And that's a whole nother conversation, but definitely build, what you want to do full time. Build your business while you're still working,
Yeah,
for corporate. I definitely agree with that.
yeah.
So looking back at your journey, when did you start to see the real power in collaboration with women over a purely competitive approach? And I did some research and I saw that in the real estate industry, there are over, I believe, 60% of brokers happen to be women. So with
Mhm.
that many, like, how did you navigate that and say, I think there's more power in collaboration. Yes, I want to be the best in my field, but on
Yeah.
the way to being the best and getting to the top, I'm still going to work with and uplift other women along the way.
Because I realized, I thought I did really good on my own.
Hmm.
You start collaborating and working with people that's even at a higher level than you. I realized I learned so much, from these other ladies and these other women. And like I said, I thought I had it going on. I thought I had it all together. But, I'm like, there is so much more to learn. And there's so much more
Right.
that to know. And, really the pivotal point was when I started truly learning from their mistakes.
Hmm.
They, you know what I'm saying? Truly, like they saved me a ton of time and money just by sharing
Yes.
those experiences with me. Hey, don't do this. Don't do it like I did. I made the mistake. I'm gonna keep you from making the mistake. So that's what I continue to try to pass on down to, some of the younger people in our career now. Hey, look, your girl that did it all, okay?
Right.
I done made the mistake and all of those things. So here are my lessons learned. So again, just like I said, the knowledge sharing, is
Right.
what I missed out on for years. So when I'm like, hey, you know what? I get more. Personally, I get more, when I collaborate with other people and learn from their mistakes and things like that. So, let's keep that going. And then, like in Houston alone, it's probably less now, but last time I checked, there were 40,000 licensed realtors.
Wow,
Right.
that's a lot.
Exactly. Just in Houston alone, right? There's
Yeah.
40,000 licensed realtors. And I said it's probably gone down by now. So the likelihood of somebody else knowing another realtor is it's very likely, right?
Yeah.
But I will say this, 20% of the 20% of the realtors do all the work, do most of the volume for Houston, right?
Hmm.
So whereas, yeah, you might know another realtor, the likelihood of you working with an experienced realtor is slim, right? And then the
Hmm.
likelihood of us having the same audience is slim.
Right.
There's going to be reasons why people want to work with me that'll be totally different than why somebody want to work with my counterpart. Or, people relate to people in different ways for so many reasons or not. So, it's like, hey, we can all eat, it's enough to go around. We're
Absolutely.
not competition. My audience isn't your audience. And so when we've learned that, hey, let's stop competing. And hey, we might end up actually working together, on a
Exactly.
deal. But yeah, when I learned to like not look at people as my competitor and look at them as my collaborator, I've gotten much further in my business.
And you talked about knowledge sharing and just sharing some of those lessons with, the people that are coming up after you and under you. So how did you transfer that mindset of building and collaborating? How did you transfer that to your own brokerage, Braden Real Estate Group, and
Yeah.
then just the rest of the Houston real estate community in general?
So I mean, again, creating that culture, number one. Hey,
Hmm.
if you're honestly, if you're looking to, keep all the knowledge to yourself and everything like that, we're not the brokers for you. We do
Hmm.
collaborate, we do share, but it starts at the top. It starts with,
It
myself and then,
does.
yeah, myself and my partner Jamisha. And it's so crazy because I do believe that when you give, you're highly reciprocated, and
Absolutely.
even in my real estate, just being a realtor before we had a large brokerage, I was just like, how am I going to truly like build this real estate business coming from a corporate background? And I just said,
Hmm.
I'm gonna give as much as I possibly can to anybody
Hmm.
who wants to listen. I'm gonna give the most value possible, right? And that's what I did. I would turn my camera on social media and I would just give. And somebody said, why do you're giving all this information, you're
Right.
training your competitors as well. I was like, no, I'm not. You know, I said they can learn from me all they want to, but they're not my competitors. Like I ended up attracting them, to our brokerage because they saw that I had a spirit of giving, but it also got me a lot of clients as well because my clients, they saw how much value I wanted to give.
Right.
So
That you were the expert.
right, yeah. So just come. So like I said, just starting at the top, creating the culture within the brokerage that we come from a giving spirit. But you know where I learned that from? My family.
Yes.
I learned come from a giving spirit and be supportive. That started in our family. So that's what a lot of what you'll see. A lot of the core values that we have at Braden Real Estate Group, those are Braden family core values.
Yeah.
And one of them is giving.
And I'm a firm believer in you reap what you sow. So, I mean, the more you give, the more that, even if you don't look for that return, you're going to get it back.
Exactly.
And shifting gears a little bit, for other women that are watching this and may be building their own ventures, what would be a key piece of advice on moving away from a competitive mindset and feeling like you have to compete, you have to, you know, basically compete instead of work together, and embracing the strength of working together? What's a piece of advice you would give them?
Yeah. So again, don't look at them as a competitor. Look at them as a collaborator, honey. Because if
Mhm.
somebody's chasing the same goals as you, then they know the same struggles. They've been there. They've had the same trials and triumphs. As you, y'all are really running the same race. And it's a whole lot easier to run. Run with the teammate opposed to a competitor. You're gonna work 10 times harder.
Right.
Running a race alone with the competitor trying to beat the other person. You're gonna exhaust yourself, right?
Right.
But running a race side by side and running together, you're going to get a lot further.
Right. And so how do you specifically, like some examples that you can think of lifting as you climb? What does that look like for you, lifting other people up as you climb and mentoring,
Yeah.
whether it be other women, youth, whoever, community? What does that look like for you?
So, number one is creating opportunities for people that I now have, talking about people in certain spaces where otherwise they may not even make it to the room. And so
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing. Like I said, creating those opportunities for people for people that don't have the same opportunities as me, and pulling them in, whether that's through exposure, speaking their names, connecting people together and saying, hey, I see that you do this, I see that you do this, you two will be great together. Making the
Mhm.
introduction and creating opportunities is one of my biggest things that I love to do because I know that I have a platform like no other. And I know using my platform to create opportunities for others is one of the biggest ways that I can even give back. And, like I said, create that collaborative mindset.
Right. And our platform is all about like self-care, helping women find their best selves, live their soft life, all of that. So as a successful entrepreneur, you're a top realtor, wife, mom, speaker, all the things that I've already mentioned. How do you navigate the demands of everything that you do and still prioritize your own well-being? What does balancing or juggling it all look like for you?
Yeah, so I don't believe in balance because there is none. And you probably would have heard my counterpart say this as well.
I tried to say juggling.
Yeah, we are kind of navigating, right? But
Yeah.
I learned honestly through the experience of being on reality TV, I learned the best way to have balance with anyone else is to take care of myself mentally. Right. So that's the very first thing, right? So I am an advocate of therapy, which I did not really participate in until the show came along. you know, but so number one, the first piece of my navigation is making sure that I'm taking care of myself and myself is whole.
Yes.
My family will always be my top priority. Especially I have an 8-year old, so the need looks different every day. And I'm
Right.
going to prioritize what needs me that day. And some days it may be work, and some days it may be family, but I realize that I cannot do anything work related, if I don't have a solid family foundation first. So my
Right.
priority is always at home first, the best I can, right? My priority is always at home first. And then, if home, once I know home is good, um,
Right.
then I focus on work. But I will say this: waking up early has been a key, one of the keys to my success and helping me navigate through everything. Right? Because when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, my daughter is still asleep for 3 more hours. right? So that
Right.
allows me 3 hours of, getting what I need to do done for me, for my business, whatever that may be. But just finding actually, and it might be kind of sacrificing myself a little bit because some days I just want to sleep, honey. you know,
And I don't blame you.
yeah, yeah. Some days I just want to sleep, but I know,
Right.
with me waking up early, that allows me to get ahead of my day. And when 7 o'clock come from 7 to 8 o'clock is strictly my baby's time. In the evening times we don't we cut the phones off in the evening. We at least have dinner together, before it starts back up. But my family, I always want them to feel like they're my priority first. So I
Yes.
I prioritize them first
Mhm.
in terms of my daily task and things of that nature. But it started with me realizing I had to prioritize me to be able to be there for them.
Definitely, you have to take care of yourself to help take care of others.
Amen.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned about whether it's setting boundaries and protecting your time and your energy, especially when you have so many things that can be seen as like pulling from you or taking from you so much?
Yeah.
What have you learned as far as setting boundaries?
So when you set your boundaries, don't feel guilty about them.
Mm,
Because those boundaries are created for you to protect yourself and your safe space, right? And
mhm.
everybody's not going to respect your boundaries, and that's okay too. And everybody may not understand your boundary, and that's okay
Right.
too. But the boundaries that I set for myself now, I don't feel guilty about them. And I do communicate what my boundaries are. That's something I used to not do because I thought that everybody just understood, like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. We're not going to do this to that person. But everybody doesn't, right? Everybody doesn't know what your boundaries are. So communicate your boundaries and be unapologetic about enforcing your boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I kind of skipped around a little bit with these questions, but that's okay. How has Family Empire, I didn't really ask about that yet, but how has that show given you a new platform to champion women's empowerment, which I know you're extremely a big proponent of?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. How is it giving me a platform to champion women's empowerment? Um, I think that number one, it really shows like what you see on the shows, you see a lot of women working together, right?
Right.
So it's giving me the opportunity to be the example. I mean, even though we're family members, we're still women. We still have women traits and women personalities, and
Right.
that we would find in other friends and other women. So I think it's allowed me to show that we can work together. You know what I'm saying? And like
Mhm.
just display what healthy women relationships look like. And it's not always fun. It's not always everything that you want it to be. But the fact that we can say, hey, let's talk through this.
Right.
Let's collectively work together. Let's talk through this. I do think that God has blessed me with that. At least the opportunity to show what that women can work together in healthy, non-competitive spaces.
Yes. I love that. Along with that, with that lesson or with that message, what else do you hope your journey and your success conveys to other, not only Black women, but just women in general that are aspiring to leadership or entrepreneurship or working just in other spaces with other women?
So, I I kind of I always kind of go back and forth in my head. Like I never want to show a picture perfect journey
Mm, mhm.
because journeys are not picture perfect, right? And so I do want to set the tone and let people know like it's okay to fail and fail again and try, and you're going to have hard times and triumphs and trials, right? But with hard work and determination you will again reap what you sow. You will see the
Right.
success, right? And don't give up the first time. So I always try to like not depict like, hey, this is this picture perfect journey, because and I have to tell people that all the time too. Hey, I worked even in real estate 7 years before anybody even knew. you know
Whoa.
Exactly. So I was behind the scenes figuring this whole real estate game out before I just quote unquote popped out as this super successful real estate, entrepreneur.
Right.
You know, and so I hope that people see that, success takes time and hard
Right.
work. Yeah, I hope that they see this. So like I said, I beat myself up sometimes about making
Yeah.
sure I'm not portraying this picture perfect life because it's far from picture. I mean, far from picture perfect.
Right. That's really good advice. And just knowing that success is not linear. It won't look the same for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of your company that you co-own with Jamisha, what are your hopes and visions for the future of Braden Real Estate Group and your impact on the Houston community? So I guess that's a twofold question.
You know, I I honestly think that Braden could have a bigger impact on the community. I know we are small. You know, we're considered an independent broker. So when you look at some of the major
Mhm.
corporations, major brokers like that, we are still very much so a small business, right? Um, but I hope that you know, when we step out in the community, right? I hope that we are creating more opportunities for home ownership. And honestly, you know, as a realtor, it's tough for me to say this, but also if you look at, one of the biggest consumers of affordable housing are Black people, you know, but there is an affordable housing crisis right now. Affordable housing honestly isn't affordable.
Right.
In the eyes of many people, it's no longer affordable, right? So I even think we might need to change the word, and stop referring to affordable housing as affordable housing because I don't think it's that anymore. But I pray that we can help people create their legacies
Mhm.
and build wealth through real estate. And I pray that, years down the line when I'm gone, there are our descendants of people that we've helped can still say that they are reaping, and benefiting from what we've helped their family member or their loved one create.
Amazing. This has been a wonderful interview, Nicole.
Oh,
One question that I love to ask that I want to wrap up with is what is one piece of advice that you would give to maybe your younger self or your past self before you were Nicole Handy, before you were a mom, an entrepreneur, before you were so many things to so many other people? What's one piece of advice you would give to yourself?
actually, I have two, right?
Okay,
But my
that's
first one
even
is,
better.
is something I always like to say that everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Oof.
You know, yeah, and the person you see today had to overcome a lot of fear of
Yes.
rejection, fear of lack of confidence, all of those things, right? And so that took some time too, right? But when I got over
It's a
those
word.
fears, whatever
Hmm.
that fear, whatever's holding you back, everything you want is on the other side of fear, right? So that's what I would tell my younger self is don't be afraid, don't be fearful. You
Yeah.
may fail, and that's okay too, but don't be scared to at least try. And it
Yeah.
took me a long time to get over that. Girl, I should have left corporate America a long time ago. But I was honestly scared, so everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I realized that tenfold now. All right. But
Mhm.
also too, like I kind of talked about earlier, learn from other people's mistakes. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to seek out a coach, a mentor, right? Because again, I feel like I'd be light years ahead of where I am now, But yeah, don't be afraid of those things. So my biggest thing is fear. Overcome those. Don't be afraid to overcome your fears.
Yes, that is amazing, amazing, amazing advice. I have a pastor that said you can either learn by experience or you can learn by wisdom, learn from
Amen.
the wisdom of other people instead
Amen.
of going through it.
Amen.
So, perfect, perfect advice. Thank you so much, Nicole. Is there any last words that you want to leave our audience with?
You know what? I said this. I was given an award the other day, and I said this because it honestly was a quote that I saw on social media that has truly stuck with me. But again, when you see somebody else chasing the same goals as you, they are not your competitor; they are your collaborator. So empower them and inspire them, and you guys figure out how to grow together. I love that, and that will stick with me forever.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.